Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby, where we hope to be informative and entertaining and help you keep your modeling mojo alive. Dave, we're back for our final episode before the National Convention in Omaha. And I tell you, the mailbag's been rolling in this past 2 weeks, and we got a little special segment or special format change tonight because we haven't had a all listener mail all the time episode in a long time. And boy, we sure got a lot. So we're going to tackle that tonight. But until we get to that, what is up in your model sphere, Dave?
Well, my model sphere is filled with excitement, man. I'm telling you what, this is the time where, I've said this before, it is my Christmas every year. The Nationals is my happy time. And when it gets close, I'm like a kid counting down those second and third weeks in December when you were a kid and you were like, God, each day lasts so long. I can't wait. As the show approaches, there's been a whole lot of communication back and forth among modeling friends, podcasters, et cetera, and I'm telling you what, every time I get a message or a text or whatever, it just makes me more and more anxious to get going. So I can't wait till you show up here, we hop in a car and we start driving. How about you?
Well, I'm all that and a bag of chips. To offer something else in the model sphere, I've been enjoying since Spencer Pollard posted his blog about having to get an optivisor. That's been really interesting to see him have to change his game up a little bit and relearn a few things, as he's sort of putting it, I guess. So, but I think I read in one of the posts that, he made it past 50 before he had to get one. So that's a pretty good run, to be honest.
Yes, absolutely it is.
But I can just remember 40-ish probably. It's like my eyesight just fell off a cliff.
Yeah. Well, I've had glasses since 8th grade.
Well, I have too, but yeah.
Somewhere in the 40s is when all of a sudden the no-line trifocals showed up. But now I'm blessed. I got lucky. I'm myopic, not astigmatic, and my near vision is still sharp. I do some of my best modeling when I'm doing real close-up work with my glasses off and the parts I'm working with probably 3 to 4 inches from my eyes. And I've got a depth of field of about an inch or an inch and a half at that distance where my eyesight, I swear, is as sharp as it was when I was young. But anything beyond that or anything closer, it just completely goes off the cliff. So I use an optivisor a lot.
Well, I do too. And I recommend that over the eyeglass style.
Yes, absolutely.
Mainly because we had a pair of those at work, and I saw the intern look down at the floor one time, and then they fell right off his head and broke in about 4,000 pieces.
Oh.
So I took my extra optivisor to work. Anybody out there that's run up on 40 to 50, you might have that to look forward to.
Yeah. But you know what? You can still, Spencer Pollard was actually talking about how, it was negatively affecting his modeling, the lack of eyesight or the lack of clarity that he was experiencing. But the nice thing is, in the scheme of things, it's fixable. It's fixable real easily. And, I'd much rather deal with that than deal with what I deal with because of my genetic condition where I have the essential tremor. I mean, that's much less easy to fix.
That's true. You're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm surviving. So Mike, I assume for the last episode before the Nationals, you have a modeling fluid in front of you.
unless I'm taking a detox run.
Yeah, you mean like we did after Vegas last year?
No, I've got one. I'm joking. I'm drinking the last of the 6-pack of Pilsner Urquell I bought Friday.
Good beer. Good
Saturday. I like these European pills sometimes. I mean, some people think they're a little sulfury, and they can be.
They can go skunky if it's something that's been sitting around someplace a while.
This isn't skunky. It's a distinct flavor like this one, Czechvar, Heineken, St. Pauli Girl. They all have this same kind of sulfur note to them.
I like Czechvar. I will tell you.
It's refreshing.
Yes. Yep. Especially if you're sitting out back by the fire pit, God,
not in July in Kentucky.
You can say that, hey, the fire pit going even in July in Kentucky keeps the damn mosquitoes away.
Yeah, that's true.
I've got a running battle with the mosquitoes in my backyard, man.
Oh, what about you? What are you sipping on tonight, Dave?
Well, as a matter of fact, I am slightly varying one of my favorites. I am drinking a New Belgium Voodoo Ranger Juice Force IPA. It's a hazy imperial IPA, very, very close, but not exactly the same as their regular Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA. As far as beer goes, this thing has the kick of a mule. It's a 9.5 alcohol by volume. So it's not light. It's not something that you're going to drink a couple while you're doing your yard work, unless you fall off the riding mower. But it's a darn good evening beer. Goes really good with spicy food. Had some jerk chicken legs that I made the other night, and this went really, really well with them. So I'm sure that at the end of the night, I'm going to be reporting that it was a good experience.
Well, good. We'll see how it goes in the end.
So did we get any listener email? Anybody listening to us?
I tell you, man, I can't. This happened. We accumulated a bunch. Well, but the last time we did this big time mailbag thing, we solicited it. We set that episode up.
Yeah.
Well, that was many episodes ago. And I think our general increase in listenership is to the point now where every now and then we get a lot in, more than usual. And I don't know, for the last 2 weeks, I don't know if we've said some interesting things, hopefully funny things or topics people are interested in, but we've got a bunch. So we're going to break it up in two or three segments here and put some stuff in between, and not to wear everybody out on listening to mail, but there's a lot of good stuff here, and let these folks be heard.
Absolutely.
Are you ready for listener mail segment number 1?
I am. Go for it.
First up is Jonathan McRae, and Jonathan is a graduate student at Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas.
So he has no excuse not to be in Omaha.
I don't know if he's going to be there or not. He doesn't mention it.
Oh,
it's a lot closer than we are.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to do it, and it's a 10-hour drive. You can make the run.
That's right. He says the hobby and the podcast go a long way to helping him get through the stress of academic studies. Now, not just academic studies, but your regular life and your job and your whatever, right? I mean, that's kind of that kind of hits at least kind of our philosophy on this hobby. It's not everybody's, but it's a bit of escapism.
Yeah.
And glad it's working out for him in that manner. He suggests that we check out a YouTube channel by a figure painter named Vince Venturella.
There's so much YouTube out there.
I know. You could waste an entire week just watching that stuff.
You'll have to text me that guy's name because I'm searching.
Well, he brings it up because he thinks that this gentleman's approach to figure painting touches on a lot of stuff we've talked about in past episodes. We talked about system engineering with Ed Baroth. We've often talked about learning from other disciplines and genres. He's got hobbies, tips, and tricks, and talks about color manipulation, and just thinks it's somebody we ought to check out, maybe even get on the show sometime. So we'll have to look him out, and we'll put the URL in the show notes. And he's got a tip too.
Oh, good.
We've talked about this before, but I'm just going to have to try it, Dave. It's using the UV light pen, this time not to bond stuff with, but actually fill small gaps and seams.
The thing that I've seen people, and maybe this is just being an aircraft modeler, the people using it to make like landing lights or small clear dome lights or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had one of those pens, and to be honest with you, I've used it more for non-modeling purposes than modeling purposes. So I'll have to take a look at that and experiment around a little.
Up next is Joel Middleton from Sherwood Forest in the UK.
Oh, is he one of Robin Hood's merry men,
or the Sheriff of Nottingham?
Okay, could be. Hey, we want to assume our listeners are the good guys.
He's heard us talk about exotic places that people have ordered stuff from. Somebody mentioned Plastic Model Store in the Ukraine. And he says that despite the activities over there, also known as a war.
Yes. Or if you're Mr. Putin, it's a special military operation.
That's right. Armory, Dora Wings, Wingsy Kits, Res Kit, Foxbot decals. He says the postal times to the UK have been running about 6 weeks, which is about the same as it took before. For some reason, stuff is languishing in Germany, which has probably got nothing to do with the war.
No. Darn Germans.
He says his most exotic place is probably from Micromaster in New Zealand, who make 3D printed ship details.
I don't think I've ever ordered anything from New Zealand. Of course, then again, I didn't, I wasn't a Wingnuts guy, so I'm sure there are a lot of guys who got Wingnuts kits back when they were selling them directly. The only way to get them.
One of the New Zealander IPMS club members sent me all those plans for that British naval catapult.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Long time ago.
How's that catapult coming?
It's still in the vaporware, man. He says from the rainy edge of Europe, Tom's Model Works in California seems pretty exotic. I can understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I saw them on the vendor list for nationals.
Oh, they usually are there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they were in Las Vegas, weren't they?
Yes.
That's a lot closer to California. Yeah.
I was going to say that was very close to them, but they're usually there most years. Unlike you.
I know, I'm not.
Because we were texting this afternoon and Mike was noting the fact that this will be the first time that he's done back-to-back nationals ever, right?
That would be true.
Telling you what, such a noob.
Uncharted territory.
I know. Can't wait.
Dalton Lott from Georgia. I think Dalton's a young guy. He's asking, he's been inspired by the past news events like Los Angeles riots in 92, like the NYPD setting up headquarters in the Burger King at 9/11, stuff like that. And he's kind of asking about sensitive topics and I guess kind of where do you go and where do you not go and kind of where's the line, I guess.
You don't want to make the mistake that Mig did?
No, the AK book.
The AK book. You don't want to make the AK mistake.
That wasn't so much the subject matter; it was the marketing.
Well, that's right. They were dealing with very sensitive subject matter, and they approached it in exactly the wrong way. Over the years, I've been to some, as a matter of fact, some nationals where there have been some rather sensitive subjects dealt with. A Holocaust diorama where, the train siding at Auschwitz. There are, particularly if you're doing a knocked out vehicle, dead bodies, particularly burned dead bodies, can be a real sensitive area. And I think that I would urge everybody to try and, if you're going to do something like that, err on the side of caution as far as what you present and how you present it, and approach it from the standpoint, if somebody is super, super sensitive to this particular subject, I want to make sure that I haven't done anything to go out of my way to rub them the wrong way or rub it in their face. And I've seen over the years a diorama or two where the modeler was doing exactly that. And I just think it's a mistake.
Well, I don't know if we helped him or not. I guess err on the side of caution if you're concerned.
Err on the side of being sure you're respectful of what you're modeling. Keep in mind, as you're modeling a sensitive subject like that, a mass grave, something like that, make sure that you're erring on the side of being respectful to your subject, because you're dealing with a particularly sensitive area, and some people's reactions may be different than what yours are, because you're modeling the subject, and so therefore you have a certain, like a surgeon, a certain detachment from it.
Well, moving along. Now Rock Rozak's back again.
All right.
Detail and Scales cranked out something else.
What have they done this time?
Detail and Scale Volume 14, the F-14 Tomcat.
I saw that. I saw an advertisement for that. And, the F-14 Top Gun Maverick, the F-14 is one of those aircraft that plenty of people just have super love for. And there were a whole lot of changes during the life of the aircraft. So something that Detail and Scale is really good about documenting the changes, service life upgrade programs that happen during an aircraft's life, so they can help you figure out, if you're modeling a particular aircraft, which lumps and bumps and such that you need on a particular subject. So, I mean, and I love their electronic versions where you can blow the photos up as big as you need. For a person who likes old-fashioned books and that old book smell and leafing through a book, electronic books do certainly have some real distinct advantages.
Well, maybe we need like an old book incense.
There you go. That my wife hates that smell. To me, I think that is one of the best smells in the world. And if somebody made an old bookstore candle, I would actually buy it and burn it. Of course, I'd have to do it in my model room because the wife wouldn't let me do it anywhere else.
Let's see if Gwyneth Paltrow can come up with that one.
Oh, no. No, let us not go there.
Well, Rock hails from Blacksburg, Virginia, so he's a Hokie, I guess. Virginia Tech country.
Having grown up myself for some period of time in Richmond, whenever I cross back into Richmond, it's amazing. The accent comes back immediately. It's I have pretty much a Kentucky accent as far as that goes, but the moment I cross the border into Virginia, I drop right back into it because I grew up there.
Well, he helps see us in Omaha, and we hope to see you too, Rock. And he appreciates us mentioning the books on the podcast. That's no problem either, because they're good books.
They are absolutely good books.
John Fincher, currently in West Frankfort, Illinois. Now, he's the former IPMS Seattle guy that we were wondering about an episode or two ago.
I ran into Mr. Fincher at Wonderfest.
Yeah, you mentioned that. First off, he wanted to offer up something to the listener who was thinking about starting the model club at his school. And that was the guy up in Saskatchewan.
Right.
And he said he should check out what make and take offerings are available from different manufacturers, as well as the IPMS USA. And you in fact mentioned that as well, too. You should reach out to the society. Yeah. At least in Canada, maybe even the United States. They may do something too. I don't know.
IPMS UK IPMS Canada and IPMS USA are very much sister organizations, and there's a lot of cooperation between the two.
For Magnum Opus kits, he's found himself in the possession of a poacher Rolls-Royce Phantom 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, what's that, like 8th scale maybe?
Yeah, I think that's 8th scale.
Or 12th. It's big, I know that.
Something like that. Yeah. But those things are beautiful. I mean, I think it was Hasegawa did a couple of biplanes. They called them museum quality kits.
Yeah.
Where, they were they weren't just plastic. There was wood and screws and hinges and all sorts of stuff. Those poacher kits are the same. They are magnum opus kits. They're something that you could take and really go to town on.
Well, and he also mentions the level up builds. He's got a couple. His first one was to me a racing motorcycle that he did after he joined IPMS Seattle.
All right.
Yeah, but he says, he entered contests with it and won precisely nothing. And he asked the judge about it, and the judge pointed out some mistakes that he knew were there, and he decided he had two choices: to take his toy and go home, or to get better. That's interesting, because that's a level up build, but that's kind of it's a crossroads kind of level up build. That's not that's not necessarily. I guess he did learn something, but about himself.
Yep.
Not so much about the model, right? Well,
and he knew the flaws that were pointed out. He said the ones he already knew were there. And honest to gosh, nobody has ever built the perfect model. There literally nobody's ever built a flawless model. Now, I've seen a few that, to me, come as close gets, but we're all human. So, and every modeler knows where the flaws in their model are. You build a model and you're really happy with it and you take it to contests. First of all, whether or not it wins anything isn't important. It's more about, particularly in a 1, 2, 3 IPMS style system, it's more about what model showed up that day as much as it is about the quality of your particular model. It's nice that he took the criticism and used it as a learning experience, because there are people, we're all human, and it's real easy for you to take that criticism as a criticism of you rather than a criticism of the model you build. If you find yourself doing that, you don't want to do it. That'll ruin your modeling experience. That'll ruin the hobby for you if you start caring too much about whether it wins at a contest or what other people think of it. Because ultimately, this is a hobby about you being happy with what you've done.
Well, in his other one, he built a 1971 Barracuda, I guess, car.
Oh, good car.
And he says he painted it 3 times before he got it right, and then polished and clear-coated and polished and clear-coated and decaled and clear-coated for weeks until the decals were buried in the clear coat and the model just glowed. And he said, now that one is one he puts on his shelf with pride, because he absolutely got that one right. And that all that carried over onto subsequent projects. So
that's a level up build. That's where you learn something. And not only that, that's something where you sweated over it and you went back and did it again until it was, well, not perfect, but it was, really, you knew you were hitting a next level. So that's the kind of experience that, no matter whether you win an award with that model or not, as he says, that's one you're proud to have on your shelf.
Well, Chris Wesley sent us a picture of the Three Floyds Speed Castle box. So Chris, yes, we're well aware of that one.
We're trying to get the folks at Three Floyds to talk to us, man. We are their biggest supporters.
Possibly, at least in this hobby.
I'm wondering, my prediction is the next box like that will be a monogram box.
Or it'll be the inside jokes up now, so they aren't going to do anymore.
No, they've done 2. I bet you they're going to do a Hasegawa. My other prediction is a Hasegawa box, but I think their next one's going to be a monogram box, because that red, white, and blue monogram logo from the 80s, that is very, very easy for them to incorporate into one of their beer boxes.
Mike Shelley, he's writing in for our call to tell us your biggest modeling disappointment story, preferably from childhood.
Yes, preferably from childhood.
Well, this one resonates with me because it's kind of the same era and the same size kit from the same manufacturer, just a different bomber. He says in the 70s, when he was 13 or 14, he was given monograms B-17G.
Oh, the 48 scale kit.
Yeah, with the Shep paint insert.
Mm-hmm.
See, my first kit was the B-24.
Yep.
With the ship paint insert. The one where the diorama is them painting it up as an assembly ship.
Yes.
With all the polka dots on it.
The polka dot one.
Anyway, he didn't have the guts, he says, to drill all the holes for flak damage or bend up the props, but he tried to do a good job painting it and took his time and did a half-decent rattle can silver job on it. But a couple days later after that, the fuselage split wide open.
Oh, the joys of tube glue.
Yes. And he says no amount of orange tube tester cement was going to close that back up again.
Oh.
And he doesn't remember if it ever got to decal stage.
Oh, man.
Then he went to 72nd scale and has never attempted another kit that large.
Congratulations. See, that disaster led you to the right path. And I am so glad to hear that you found the right path.
And he did follow up with a second email, and Mike Shelley's from Beaumont, Texas. Yeah, we got ours together. It was already silver, so we didn't paint it any further. Sort of, right?
Yeah.
And I played with it, flew it around the room.
That thing must have been nearly as big as you were.
It probably was.
Because that's a big darn kit in 48 scale.
Well, they both are, really.
Yes, they are. Although I'm here to tell you, and this may be a controversial opinion, B-24 greater sign B-17.
Yeah, maybe.
I may start some fights with that opinion. We'll see.
Flame war about bombers.
There you go.
Well, let's break from. I'll tell you what. If you got any from Facebook Messenger, we'll go ahead and take care of that. At least one of them.
Yeah, actually, I've got a couple from Facebook Messenger. You all are utilizing our Facebook page and Facebook Messenger, and I tell you, I really appreciate it. Ken Beckler reached out to me and did. Now, I happen to be aware of what he told me, but it's a great point. He sent a message to recommend. There's a YouTuber by the name of Drakenophil, who is a naval historiographer and who does these really great videos on World War I and World War II naval battles, mostly World War I and World War II naval battles, different ships, different classes of ships, the evolution of the torpedo, evolution of the steam turbine, et cetera, et cetera. Just, it's a YouTube channel that I watch nearly every video that this guy does, even though I'm not a ship model or anything, just because he's good at what he does and he makes it interesting. And Ken contacted me to recommend Drakenophil's. He did a nearly 2-hour documentary on the A6M0. And it's incredibly detailed, goes into the metallurgy of the Zero, which is one of the things that made the Zero what it was, because it used a particular formulation of aluminum that was light but strong and granted the Zero much of its maneuverability. But I had seen this particular video, but he reached out because he didn't know, obviously, and recommended me to it. And it makes a point that I want to get across there. As we were talking about earlier, there's more content out there than you can possibly consume. And there's more content out there that Mike and I can ever be aware of. So if you come across something that you think is of particular interest, it is definitely a favor to us for you to reach out and point out something like this documentary that Drakenophil did, or the listener who talked about that figure painter YouTube channel that you mentioned earlier, because we can't be aware of everything. I mean, as much as Mike and I devote our entire life to modeling to the exclusion of work, family, and everything else, we still can't be aware of it all. So anytime you think that there's something of interest, please go ahead and do what Ken did and shoot us a quick message or a quick email. Another listener who reached out was Steve Schaefer. and Steve is coming to his first nationals. And I envy Steve because I've been to 26 nationals, I think now. Your first national is just an experience that no matter how many you've been to, you will never forget, because it is just such a next level experience to anything you've experienced before. So he was coming to the nationals and he was asking, how many models can I bring? And I told him, obviously you can bring as many as you want. And he said, if I bring 30 models, am I going to look like some sort of geek? And I said, well, not any more than all the other geeks there. I did say that if you're trying to cut it down for transport purposes and for time of entry purposes, entering multiple models in the same category in an IPMS system can sometimes be a little self-defeating because you're kind of competing with yourself. So if you're looking to trim down the number of entries that you bring, try and maybe decide, okay, I'm going to bring the best one in each particular category, and I'm not going to bring two that I'm going to enter in the same category. But like I told him, there is absolutely nothing wrong. If you've got 30 models because you've been producing and this is your first time in a nationals, go ahead and bring them. Because as much as it is a contest, what it also is a chance for other people to experience your work and for you to experience theirs. So even if it has nothing to do with whether you win an award or not, you've allowed other people to see what you've done, and somebody is going to see your work and appreciate it and maybe even learn something. And you never know, maybe even seek you out to ask you questions about it. We all have something that we can teach each other. Go ahead and bring as many models as you feel comfortable bringing. There's no limit. And again, you're around a whole bunch of other nerds and geeks. Nobody's going to be judging you for that. Chris Wesley reached out to thank us because he finally picked up a bottle of Mr. Color Leveling Thinner 400, or as it's commonly referred to on the podcast, Unicorn Tears. And his comment was, okay, you guys win. This really is the best stuff ever. And, I agreed with him. It's hard to argue that stuff. I mean, it reminds you of the old SNL ad for Shimmer, that it's both a floor polish and a dessert topping. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, if you pour it in your gas tank, probably will increase your gas mileage and works as a floor polish and a dessert topping. I mean, the stuff is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. If you've not used it, I highly recommend it. It is a great thinner, particularly for use with Tamiya paints and AK Real Color paints. It's the bomb. This is the point in the episode where, if you haven't done it already, or heck, even if you have, we ask you to rate the podcast on whatever podcast app you listen on, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, whatever. Please rate the podcast. Please give it 5 stars. That is important to help drive the visibility of the podcast. More importantly, if you've got a modeling friend who's not listening to this podcast, we would appreciate it if you would recommend the podcast to them. Tell them why you like it. Get them to listen. And, if they're less tech savvy, you may have to take their phone from them and show them how to download a podcast app and show them how to download our podcast. Please subscribe. The word of mouth is the number one way we get new listeners, and we continue to grow, much to Mike and I's amazement. We appreciate it, and please do that.
Please also check out our fellow podcasters out there in the model sphere. You can do that by going to modelpodcasts.com, modelpodcastplural.com. It's a consortium website set up with the help of Stuart Clark from Scale Model Podcast to provide a single repository with links to all the other podcasts who've chosen to participate in this family with us. And I tell you what, a big bunch of those guys are going to be out at Omaha at the Nationals, and we got a couple of events out there you can swing by and have a chat. So,
yeah, that is something I did want to mention, or we should mention. I've said before that the seminars at IPMS National are really great and you should check them out. And one of the seminars this year is a podcast roundtable with a bunch of the different podcasts. Basically, Jim Bates MCs the event, and people just show up and ask questions. And it's a great time where you can see many of the podcasters if you listen to more than one podcast. And in fact, the guys from Australia, OTB, are going to be there this year. So it's going to be a really good chance to come. It's a great seminar. So if you've got the opportunity, you're at the Nationals, please come by and check out the podcast roundtable.
In addition to all the podcasts out there in the model sphere, Dave, we got a lot of blog and YouTube friends kicking out some content as well. We got Stephen Lee with his blog, Sprue Pie with Frets.
I am in awe of his level of production. He is just, he is cranking out. Not only does he crank out great blog entries, a lot of them are, hey, this is something interesting, or hey, this is a new thing that's announced. But then he'll also do a longer form entry, and his stuff is just really worth reading. I haven't read one that wasn't thought provoking and caused me to go, let me think about that.
We've also got Chris Wallace, model airplane maker. He's got a blog and a YouTube channel worth checking out. And if you're into 72nd scale, please check out Mr. Jeff Groves, the Inchai guy, and the Inchai blog. In fact, Stephen gave him some props on one of his most recent blog posts. And last but not least, Jim Bates of Scale Canadian TV. Please check him out on YouTube for his take on what's going on in his modeling life.
And Jim always has something interesting going on. And Jim approaches modeling with a sense of humor and sometimes you see some people who take this a little bit too super seriously, and Jim approaches it with a really great attitude. So I highly recommend his stuff as very entertaining.
So check it all out when you get a chance.
And finally, this is the point in the podcast. If you're not a member of IPMS USA, IPMS Canada, or your local IPM or your national IPMS organization, IPMS Norway, IPMS Australia, wherever you happen to be, consider joining your national organization. It does a lot to promote the hobby. Now, we've got the Nationals coming up here in the U.S., and that would not exist without the IPMS USA National Organization. And it is, without a doubt, again, I've said it, it's the best 4 days of my year, every single year, year in and year out. I'm super appreciative to the guys who take the time and the effort to join the national organization, to contribute to the national organization with their time. We would all rather be modeling than doing the stuff we've got to do to keep the organization going. The least you can do is go ahead and join, and not only join, but once you've joined, participate.
All right, Dave, let's break here and have a word from our sponsor. Plastic Model Mojo is now brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com. All right, Dave, we're back, and it is Wagons Ho for Omaha, the last Wagons Ho for Omaha.
We are
8 days away, Dave. At the time of this recording, until the 2022 IPMS National Convention, Omaha, Nebraska. And I think it's all fallen into place finally.
It absolutely is. I know you and I have been exchanging communications about what we're bringing, when we're leaving, how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that, when we're going to arrive, what we're going to do when we get there. So, it's becoming a reality, man.
It is. Well, I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it as usual. It's gonna be a good time. I think the big thing is for me, at least from the podcast perspective, is that there's a lot going on at Vegas because there hadn't been we skipped a year.
Right.
Because of COVID.
And
everybody had skipped a year pretty much in their regions for any kind of show for most of those years, that year and change. Right. Yep. And we'd never met among the podcasters. We'd never met each other face to face, with rare exception. Right.
Yep.
And, but once the ice was broken, it all kind of worked out and we had a big time. And I think, there's a lot more to look forward to this year, because we know how good it's going to be.
Well, and I will tell you that not only, again, I look forward to nationals anyway. I've 26 times. I absolutely love it every single time. But I will tell you, Vegas was really special from the standpoint that a number of the other podcasters were there. We all got to get together, not only for the round table, we had a breakfast together. And, while you might listen to these guys in podcasting and all, it was really great to sit there and meet them and talk to them and exchange info and ideas. And they were really, I hate to say this, but they're all a really good bunch of guys. I mean, it was even John Bonani, who honest to God, the first words I spoke to him were because he had decided to run and got himself elected as second vice president of IPMS USA. I walked up to him and the first words I ever spoke to him were, "What in the heck were you thinking?" Because that's the position in IPMS USA that's responsible for the national convention from the national point of view. And it is a really, really hard job. And I got to give John big props for taking it on. Because it's easy to go and enjoy a national, but to actually plan for upcoming nationals and doing that hard work, that's going above and beyond. So I can't wait.
Well, I'm sure folks would rather hear from the horse's mouth and hear us go on and on about how great it's going to be. We had a little segment this week with Scott Hackney, the show chairman for the National Convention and out of the Omaha group. So let's get into what he had to say. Well, Dave, we're getting really, really close. And to get the final dish on the show preparation and what folks can expect, we've got Scott Hackney here from the Omaha group. Show chairman Scott, how you doing?
I am well. A little busy, but good.
Yeah, no stress right now, right?
No stress.
Yeah.
No
well, from the planning standpoint, I guess they would say it's all over but the shouting. I hope for you guys, but well, how's it going? What can we expect, Scott? We're looking forward to, even though we got to drive a long way, we're really looking forward to showing up and meeting everybody again and just having a grand old time.
Well,
how's it looking?
Well, when you get here, it'll be hot.
It's hot here.
Yeah, it's hot here. That's no big deal.
It's going to be in the mid 90s, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any substantial rain or anything in the forecast right now. So maybe none of those thunderstorms like we had in 2011 when the power went out. But
I remember that. I was there.
But most everything's inside, particularly if you're in either one of the hotels. You almost never have to leave. So I think that's a good thing. And like I say, close to 700 pre-registers. So that's a high for us. So we're really looking forward to a great show. The decals are here and all packaged. They're just beautiful.
Good. I can't wait to see those.
So yeah, the Korean idea was a good one, and they came out wonderful. I mean, we want to thank Sprue Brothers for sponsoring them, and Scott Brown of Bullseye for drawing them. And Scott and I did a lot of research together to get those together, and they're just great looking. And of course, 2 scales on those. They're both the quarter and 72nd scale, and then you also have the Independence class ship numbers on the decal sheet as well. So if you want to do the 1/350th scale Independence class, then we've got all of the whole numbers there for you.
Now, the show opens Wednesday at what time officially?
Officially, pre-registration starts at 10. Walk-in.
You mean registration?
Well, the pre-registration guys
picking up the pre-registration.
Can pick up their packages at 10. The walk-in folks can start registering at noon, and the convention officially opens, vendors room, contest room at 1.
Gotcha.
But obviously there'll be people lined up waiting for their packets and getting ready to go.
Well, this isn't your first rodeo. You all have done this in, let's see, 90-something, 94?
94.
And then 2011 and 2017. So you all are old hands at this.
Yes. Older every day.
I hear you. So the hotels are still all booked up, right?
They are. The hotels are all still booked. Both the Marriott and the Embassy, the 2 attached hotels. I hear the same thing about the Hampton and the Comfort Suites across the street, and I've been told that a lot of the hotels in the area have high occupancies this weekend of the convention. So we're expecting, like you say, still a big crowd beyond that almost 700 pre-registers. And then there's the walk-in crowd as well.
Sure.
The daily folks, the folks that just come by for the day.
Now, how many vendor tables do you have in total? 250. 250. And is that the same as it was in 2017?
No, we had more tables in 17. We actually had a little closer to 300, but you're missing Squadron.
Right.
Although the Squadron guys will be here in a smaller stance. And you're missing Zucamira, who couldn't make the show, and a few other the big ticket dealers that were around in 17 just aren't here anymore.
Sure.
But there's a lot of folks. So Kinetic will be here in force. Revell will be here. MRC will be here. MRC has given us one of the 1/200 scale Yamatos to auction.
Oh, nice.
So there will be a special auction for that Yamato.
So you're gonna have, let's see, as you and I were talking off air, Vegas last year was wasn't completely post-COVID because a lot of the travel restrictions were still in place. So a lot of foreign model entrants and foreign vendors weren't able to make it. Now, this year in 2022, with the situation having changed, you've got Edward coming in. You've got a number of those foreign vendors are back, right?
Edward will be here. Special Hobbies will be here. Flexifile will be here from Canada.
That's great news.
Yeah, for the first time in a while, and they're excited to come down. And then we've got David Charles and Phoenix Publications.
Yeah,
with their new magazine and books, and if you haven't seen those, they are fabulous.
Yeah,
I'm really liking what they're doing, and he'll be here. Showcasing and selling both their magazines and their books. So that's I noticed their magazines were at Spur Brothers the other day, as well as their books, and he's got all of his latest books are in my garage. But they will soon be at the convention for you for attendees to buy.
Now, you've got display space for models entry space for models, but there are no display tables this year.
No,
you all haven't had display tables in the past because of the fact that you're dealing with only about 50,000 square feet of total space.
Yeah, 50,000 square feet is really what we're working with, which is kind of the bare minimum for a footprint for a nationals, and we divide that up. It's almost half goes to vendors, half goes to the contest. We've got the pre-function area where the raffle and registration is, and then we've got four good size conference rooms for seminars.
And that seminar list looks really good this year. I know there's a podcast roundtable seminar that we'll be participating in, but I always tell people when on here, don't sleep on the seminars. The seminars are some of the best stuff at a national convention, and I think a lot of people, they get hypnotized by all the models and hypnotized by the vendors. And, first thing I do when I get to a convention is I look at the seminar schedule and start highlighting the seminars I want to attend. Sure. And then I build everything else around that.
There are some good ones. There's some history. There's some tips. There's some folks teaching you how to do airbrushing and how to clean your airbrush and how to do some weathering and build armor, and then we're also going to have our model industry Q&A panel.
That'll be nice.
Right now we've got Vladimir Sulik from Edward, and of course Gordon Kwan from Sprue Brothers, Rudy Klein, who's the co-owner of Lionheart Hobby, and then David Francis, as we were talking about, our Phoenix Scale publication guy, Jeff Hearn from Scale Colors, and Trevor Harm, who's one of the sales representatives for Heartland Hobby, who is once again they're one of the big middlemen. They're one of the big warehouse
distributors. Yeah.
So
that seminar is a particularly good one. I've always had an interest. I don't think a lot of modelers understand how the business side of the hobby works. And I think talking to those guys and asking them questions is really, really enlightening for the average modeler to be able to understand why they're not getting their kid of the fairy fruit bat or whatever, or how molding goes from 3D renders to cutting molds or how the distribution chain works. I think that's one of the more fascinating seminars that there is.
It is. And of course, if you want to know, they'll be happy to tell you today how much prices are going, what the inflation's doing to them, what the increased fuel costs are doing to them, as it's costing 30 and 40% more just to bring the kits into country.
Yeah, I think it's going to be eye-opening to a lot of modelers what all of this is, how all of these things ripple through the entire hobby.
And we haven't seen a lot of the price increases yet, but they are just around the corner. I've been talking to some of these folks, and some of them have been absorbing it so far, but they're just now it's starting to hit to the point where they've got to make some decisions. And so asking these folks in this seminar to explain what's really happening out there. I noticed the P38Js are out today, but when last I talked to Mia, they were still on the boat.
Yeah,
they were still sitting out there in the harbor in LA waiting to come in. Tamiya has sent us a dozen P38Js that were chrome plated for the Tokyo show.
Mm-hmm.
And those will be in our raffle.
That's awesome. Now, Mike, I've been dominating the conversation. Please ask a question.
Well, we've got the tours slated as well. If there's anything there you need to tell us, Scott, anything new other than I think they're probably sold out.
They're probably sold out. Yeah, they really are. The SAC Museum is sold out. Our contract with them is 250, and we have 250 and 50 people going over there to the museum. Of course, you can come see the museum, anytime when you're in Omaha, but we own it Thursday night, and so it's a great trip. And we're going to have some open airplanes this year, 4 or 5 different open aircraft.
That is great news. I was hoping for that. And I know the guys from Australia are really looking forward to that particular.
Yeah. The Air Force Museum changed their mind on open aircraft. And so since the Air Force owns all these aircraft, it kind of, it made its way down. And so they can open airplanes a little easier than they could in the past because the Air Force allows it now. So we should get a look at the F-117, the MiG-23, get to climb around a KC-97, and just a few of those, and even the I don't know whether you'll get into the Vulcan or not, but the Vulcan is in restoration right now, so you'll be able to get up.
That'll be neat to see.
Up and see that, because they're sanding away on the Vulcan right now.
That's cool. That is cool, because let's face it, a Vulcan is not something that here in the U.S. you just run across every day.
No, there's only 3 of them, I think, in the U.S. So, and the car museum down in Lincoln is really, USA Today called it the best car museum in the country.
Yeah.
And so it's well worth the trip, and there are actually still a few tickets open for that, and that one's Friday morning, and of course Lincoln's about an hour away, and we're going down there by bus in the morning for a private tour before they open.
Oh, that's cool. So is there compared to 2011 and 2017, I know you said that you adjusted some tables in the vendor room. You had to cut back some of those. But if an attendee had been to 2011 and 2017, are they going to notice a particular difference in 2022?
No, I mean, the hotel is essentially the same. The Marriott has gone through renovation when it was closed for COVID. And it's almost it's probably nicer than the Embassy right now. So it's really nice. Other than that, everything is set up just about the same. Like I said, there's a lot of folks that small businesses and things that during COVID just sort of slipped away. And so, but as of we were still getting calls last a couple of days ago for people that wanted to vend, but we just decided to hold it at 250 in the 2 big rooms and not move off into any of our seminar rooms this year.
Sure.
Because we don't have some of those bigger venues that took the 12 and 15 tables that you used to have, and some of those are gone. But otherwise, I think it's I think with the Wild Apricot, that the new management system that IPMS is using, it should flow really well. Pre-registration should move through quickly. Everything is set and ready to go. The badges are all printed and wonderful. The walk-in should be faster as well, because it's all computerized and should go. And we've got a couple of hundred blank packets ready for people to come up and register and get on their way. So even as smooth as it was last time, we're hoping it'll be smoother this time. The hotel is still going to run a concession for lunch, and it's going to be open a little earlier and a little later, so that there'll be some snacks there during the morning and the afternoon if you need a little fruit or some chips for a late day pick-me-up.
Well, one thing I'm curious about, just in the general vicinity there, for other options for eating and stuff like that, what's around? I've never been there. It'll be my first time. Okay. What can folks expect there?
If if you don't have a car, you're perhaps a little limited. There's actually a new Hooters that just opened right next door to the hotel, and then the Alamo movie theater. If you've ever been to an Alamo,
Alamo Draft House.
Yep, the Alamo Draft House, and then next to that is a steak place. We're across the street from not Bass Pro Shop, but the other one, Cabela's, and Cabela's has their restaurant. If you go across the street, and it's a 4-lane highway when we say across the street, and when it's 95 degrees out, it's a bit of a walk. Then there's a variety of fast food over there, as well as the Country Kitchen, which has a good breakfast.
Yeah.
All right.
But of course, then if you want to get in your car, there is some great steak in town.
I was going to say that the one thing I was going to remark on is that in both 2011 and 2017, because both times I had a car, I had some very fine steak meals. People, listen, the reputation for Omaha and its steaks is not an oversell. I am a steak fan. I am a huge fan of a well done steak or a well done, a really good steakhouse, and the sky's nearly the limit in Omaha.
Yeah, we have some good ones, and so there are some great ones, and my wife has put together a big restaurant list for everybody.
Ooh, that's great. I always love that. I am glad you all thought of doing that, because not every place does.
Well, we had a little bit of a help. The World Herald put one together for the College World Series.
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
So we had a head start, but it's still we went from there and added a few and put a few more things together. But that just happened here, of course, a month ago. So
it's all fresh.
Yep. Scott, is there one message that we're giving you a platform? There's something you want to tell everybody that's going to attend the show. One thing you want them to know. Well, have at it.
We want them to right. Omaha is open, and we want everyone to come in and enjoy the convention. Okay, this is our convention. This is the convention for IPMS and for modelers, and come enjoy it. Come enjoy the world's biggest hobby shop for 4 days. Come enjoy almost 3,000 beautiful models, and there's nothing more inspirational than the contest room.
Yep, completely agree.
If you've been following the Facebook chain about display tables and not display tables, I told the folks, I've never won at nationals. I've won at regionals and I won at locals, but I've never won at nationals because my model is just that, has just those little flaws sometimes that the judging system finds every time. But I put them on the table, and they look fine they look good on the table, and I'm happy to do that. I say, put your model on the table where people are looking for it, and that's the contest room.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's free once you put your registration fee in. You have unlimited entries.
Right.
So I'm going to put an F-14 in, an M1 tank, and a Matilda Toon tank, or my three entries. I mean, very kind of diverse. When I was talking to the media reps to get us some publicity, I said, none of these are probably quite good enough to win with the caliber of model that we're going to see at the convention. But I'm going to show them and show them proudly because they're my work and I enjoy them.
Well, I do have to say that Omaha has a soft place in my heart because it's the first place I ever won a national award at the NAT. So you all have a special place in my heart.
Well, that's good, and I'm happy for you. And we've got some beautiful awards.
Oh yes, absolutely.
We pride ourselves on our awards and our raffle, and so we've got a lot of raffle prizes and more to come. And so we had a huge raffle in 2017, and we're going to have a huge raffle this time. And the awards are acrylic, and they've got Uncle Sam on there, just like you see on our website.
Yeah.
And the 4 stars that we have on our shirts, right, for 94, 11, 17, and 22.
Yeah.
For our 4 conventions.
Well, I'm telling you what, I'm looking forward to seeing you, Scott. I can't wait to see you in person. I can't wait to get to the facility again. Again, 2011, 2017 are both very fond memories for me. And I have zero doubt you all are going to pull it off like you have before.
Well, we appreciate it, and we want everyone to come. I know that gas is high. But this is the Nationals, right? This is your time to go talk with people that share your hobby, and get inspired and buy a few bobs to make your next model just that much better.
So the people are the best part of any national. So come and meet your fellow modelers.
That's absolutely the case, and the great thing about it all being right there in that 50,000 square feet is that everyone you meet is a modeler.
Yep.
Well, Scott, thanks for taking a little time with us. And in a few short days, we'll be shaking your hand in Omaha.
All right. Come on up. I'll be at the front desk.
All right.
Looking forward to seeing you.
We'll see you there. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, that's good to get one more blurb out of Scott before he's got to buckle down and put the pedal to the metal and get this show on the road.
Yeah, you think that the Nationals is going to be a blur for us? I'm telling you, it's going to be a whirlwind for him.
Have you ever struggled with how to display a contest-winning model or a project you've completed after many weeks, months, or even years of work? Or how about to present a model you've built to a veteran or a family member and have the desire to protect it so it can be enjoyed for many years down the road? Basis by Bill has the solution. Their museum-quality display cases are the perfect way to protect and enhance a special model. Built by modelers for modelers, Basis by Bill display cases are available for any type of model in any size. Check out their website at basisbybill.com to see their new range of Astro cases in 18 different sizes or to get a quote on your own custom-built display case. Visit their website at basisbybill.com or see them in person at the IPMS National Convention in Omaha, Nebraska. That's Basis by Bill for all your model base and display case needs. Well, Dave, it's about time to hit the listener mailbag again.
Oh, man. That must be a deep bag. That must be like Santa's Christmas mail.
Mr. Zach Peace from Mansfield Center, Connecticut. You know, he's got a couple here. Well, one's a mistake, he said. Again, modeling disasters.
Okay.
When Zach was a young lad, he built the old Revell USS Yorktown.
Oh, I remember that kit.
First kit he built without his dad by his side. And he says he meticulously attached all the flight deck catwalks upside down on the top of the flight deck.
Oh!
And it resulted in a flight deck with bumpers for pilot training.
You know how you go bowling and they have the inflatable bumpers that come up in the gutters?
Yeah.
Guess it's the same concept.
Oh, you know, this other one here is not so much a mistake, but I guess it's a kid's choice. And I can really relate to this one. I'll get into that when I get done with his part. But he built Monogram's P-39.
Okay. I remember that kit.
And the kit had a drop tank and a bomb.
Yep.
And he wanted to use them both. Only that's not the way it was in reality. So he glued the drop tank in the position on the wing center under the cockpit, I guess, where it's supposed to go.
That's where it's supposed to go.
And then glued the bomb directly to the fuselage behind the wing, and before, ahead of the tail, after the wing, forward the tail.
That's called a field service modification.
Well, I say I can relate to that because I think I built it twice. Monogram's 48th scale Focke-Wulf FW-190.
Yep.
And it came with like 4 different armament packages.
Yep.
And every time I built it, I put everything on it.
You were loaded for bear.
So every time I see one of those like Warhammer airplanes.
Yeah.
I did that 30, 40 years ago.
You were cool before cool was cool.
Oh yeah. So, it had the twin gun pods under the wings and bombs and some other bigger gun pods.
And I think it had the Werfers, didn't it? The tube mortars?
Maybe. I can't remember, but if it did, they were on there.
Yeah.
Hey man, it looked cool though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ken Beckler writes in again from Peoria, Illinois, in the Jack Weislich Polish Coast Watchers Club there in Peoria.
Mm-hmm.
And from episode 67, he was saying he's glad we both finished up some projects. And he says, you, Dave, hit the nail on the head when you said finishing a kit gives you motivation to start the next one.
It does.
And, to be joking, it gives you motivation beyond just the fact that you don't have anything to work on that one anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's absolutely true. Not only do you obviously now have a hole that you have to fill as far as working on something new, but when you complete a model, particularly if you're pleased with it, it gets the juices flowing. It makes digging into that next kit a little more exciting because, and I know this will sound either corny or weird, but you see the possibilities. When you unbox the new kit, having just finished a kit, you see the possibilities when you're looking at the sprues.
That's right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Gets you excited.
Well, I know, I mean, heck, I know you've been virtually modeling that KV-85.
That's right. We can talk about that later.
Yep.
Well, he also says he's going to hopes to share a beer with us in a couple of weeks, and
in
Omaha. I tell you what, Ken, you buy, and the odds of that happening are going to greatly increase.
Yeah, that's right.
Up next is Dow Busby. He's originally from Springfield, Missouri, but now lives in Nashville, Tennessee. He started modeling. Go ahead.
First of all, that is a great name. I just want to say, as far as the names go, that's a great name.
He started modeling when COVID first came on the scene and shut him out of work for about 8 months. So he needed a new hobby. So he found the model kit out, Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. And we get that a lot.
It is amazing. Listen, COVID was an absolute black cloud. There is no doubt the damage was incalculable. But if you're looking for silver linings for this whole thing, the number of people who got back into the hobby because they were basically sitting at home and couldn't go out and wanted to do something. I mean, that is a situation that is tailor-made for the hobby that we engage in. So, that's the small silver lining that you can find to that big black cloud.
Well, he says one topic he wanted to get our opinion on was the release of Border Models 32nd scale Lancaster. He's bought one.
Oh, really?
And he asked if we plan on building the kit and our thoughts on Border Models releasing this kit under kind of spurious means from Wingnut Wings. I think I can speak for both of us. We're not planning on building that kit. It's too freaking big.
Yes. Although I will tell you, when Wingnuts announced it and when Wingnuts had it at the 2019 convention, they were planning to sell just the cockpit section as a separate kit. I got to say, there's a part of me that could see building that if Border decides to do the same thing. That would make a really nice display piece. And it looked really good when Wingnuts had it at 2019's convention.
Well, I won't speak for you. I'll let you do on the other part of that. I personally, that's between Border Models and Peter Jackson. And, what was he thinking, I guess would be.
They're doing business in China is a Wild West. Having been there twice, it really is different in China. And my attitude being a lawyer is, that's a legal matter between Peter Jackson / Wingnut and Border, and doesn't involve me. If the kit's available and I can buy it and it's not illegal to import into the country or anything like that, if Mr. Jackson has a beef with Border, take it up in the appropriate courts, but it's not going to stop me.
Yeah.
As long as it's legal to acquire in the U.S.
Therein lies the problem. It's not like Border Models is in Illinois, right?
Exactly. Mr. Jackson may have chosen poorly as far as that goes, and as far as where his molds resided, but he was an adult. He knew what he was doing, presumably. And, there's a risk-reward calculation that you make.
Well, there's the issue of what side of the ledger it was on, too, as far as what was paid for and what wasn't.
Oh, yeah. And all of us have no idea about any of the issues or what the contracts looked like or what even the choice of law in those contracts is. So, again, I'm agnostic as to that. As long as you can acquire them, as long as they are legal to bring into the country, I don't think any modeler is wrong if he wants to build that kit, acquiring it.
And then there was the issue of the letters sent to some of the distributors in the Western world. We've yet to see what, if anything, comes out of that. I don't know how much teeth those dogs really had.
Well, and having written a few of those letters in my career, yeah, you don't know. From just reading that letter is a rather typical letter from a lawyer or from a law firm. You really don't know whether or not there's any bite behind it.
So, Dow, there you go. I don't think we've got any reservation about someone building that kit. I know we talk about scale and genre all the time, but that's kind of pushing it right there.
It's going to be huge, but the Lancaster has a lot of fans. And having seen the test shot in Chattanooga in 2019, it is one of the most impressive models I've ever seen in kit form. What they had, assuming Border is actually able to reproduce what Wingnuts was displaying in 2019, it is one of the most impressive model kits I've ever seen in my life. In kit form. So if you're a Lancaster fan and you've got the garage to park it in, go for it. I don't see why anyone wouldn't, other than the fact that it's got a huge price tag.
David Farrell is next from Didcot, Oxfordshire in the UK. I don't know if that's right or not.
Well, we'll trust that it is.
We'll trust it is and get corrected if it's not. Oh,
yeah.
Ivan can help us with that one. We'll see him next week.
Speaking of which, we're going to see Ivan next week, and we're going to need to consult him on a lot of British place names.
Well, he sizes up his. He returned to the hobby in 2019. Spent 2 years listening to podcasts, watching YouTube, etc., not building a whole lot.
Oh, don't let that happen, man.
And piling up a stash.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's part of the hobby.
Well, now this year he's knocked out 5.
All right.
He's on a pretty good tear.
That's a tear.
That is good. That's a good job. And he wants to say that, again, certainly completing a build has encouraged him to drive on to the next.
Nothing succeeds like success, man.
And it says it even attracted positive comment from the model wife.
Always good.
So a win-win.
Yes.
because she likes seeing a completed model on the shelf instead of another box in the closet.
I feel you. That one's close to the heart, because there's been any number of times that the model wife has said, how come you have so many uncompleted kits and so few finished ones?
Well, I'm sure you do a little dance and get out of that one pretty quick.
Yeah, I work on it.
Oh, this is from the Dixie Flyer, our friend Warren Dickinson in Elkton, Kentucky.
Yes. Yep. Warren and I communicate quite often.
Well, he's got a modeling injury.
Uh-oh.
This is an interesting one. He was modeling outside on his porch, and all of a sudden his head started to get warm, like on fire hot.
Uh-oh.
And he'd rotated his magnifying eyes up to the top of his head in the autumn sun, and must have been had him pointed to the sun. So he's like ants on the sidewalk, man. He's burning the hole in his head.
I've got to admit, that's a new one on me. Okay. First of all, Warren, in all the time we've communicated, why have you never told me that story before? Because that's awesome. Number two, all the time I flip my optivisor up. You know, when you're needing to see far away, you flip the optivisor up. Of course, I'm in my model room, so there's no sun, but that makes perfect sense and is absolutely hilarious. Oh, I love that story. That's going to go in my top 10 modeling injuries.
Well, his magnum opus, he says, is he's got a photograph or knows of a photograph showing a Josta 40 in the summer of 1918 with a lineup of 6 Albatross-built Fokker D7s, an Albatross D5, and a False D3.
Oh, beautiful planes, all of them.
And he's got a big old stack of Edward and Roden kits he wants to recreate that photograph out of.
That lineup is some of the most attractive aircraft from World War One, so I can understand exactly why he wants to build that particular photo. And I would urge him to do so. Hey, neither of us is getting any younger. Go ahead and start. Don't wait until you get better. Use that as your motivation to get better.
Well, and along those lines, he talks about getting better, and he's got two current builds. It's a pair of Tinian Zeros.
Yep.
If I read it right, one of them got stalled in the early to mid 2000s, but he's back on those and reacquainting himself with using photo etch and using his double action airbrush and oil paints and weathering pencils. So
the Tinian Kokutai is one of my favorite subjects. I built one, my first one, from the old Hasegawa kit. In fact, the old Hasegawa raised panel line kit where I sanded off all the panel lines and re-engraved everything. So I fully support building more aircraft of that particular unit. So I can't wait to see those done.
Eric Kinser from Menlo Park, California.
I know where that is.
Another failed childhood build. Oh,
I love these stories.
His is an Airfix Churchill.
Okay.
You know, I built a lot of those blister pack Airfix armor kits.
Oh, yeah. 76, 72nd scale.
Well, those things are like, the hull's built up out of like 6 sides, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it says total build failure.
Yep.
Side to deck angles not being 90 degrees, sides caved in, total failure.
And on a Churchill, those are particularly important to get at 90-degree angles because of the enclosed tracks and everything.
And he's like to think he's better now. He's actually got some Valum kits to come out okay.
Dude, if you can build a Valum kit, you are doing well.
Well, he says he scarcely remembers the outcome of a lot of the other kits he built, Airfix and a lot of the other 70 small scale stuff from the 5 and dime store. But he sure remembers that Churchill.
You know, I do think that in general, your failures as a young kid are the ones that stick with you the ones that you remember the most? I don't know if that's trauma or PTSD or what, but I can remember the kits that I built that didn't turn out much better than the kits that I did that actually turned out okay.
Well, Eric, I would say go grab another one of those.
Oh, were you trying to get a nostalgia build going?
Yeah, go have another go at it. I mean, mine worked out well.
Yeah, it did. It worked out real well.
Of course, the first time I built that Beaufort's and Morris tractor as a kid, it wasn't an expectation build.
No.
But, it was pretty rudimentary. And I always liked that kit. So I built it again and to my current ability and worked out well. You might surprise yourself. See what you can get out of that old kit.
Yep, absolutely.
Worth a shot. Give it a try. Well, and for this last segment, not the last segment, for this second segment, listener mail, we're going to wrap it up with Scott. Now, Scott is Modeler X on YouTube, and he's in Denver, Colorado.
And I'm sorry, Modeler X. I grew up watching Speed Racer, when I was young. And so Racer X, because remember, Racer X really was Speed's older brother. So every time I hear Modeler X, I think of the old Speed Racer and Mach 5 and Chim Chim and all of that stuff.
Trixie. Well, looks like he's cruising to Omaha.
All right, look forward. Stop by the table, man.
He might be convoying with the Triple P. Sounds like.
Uh-oh.
He's going to be riding with the Plastic Posse podcast gang.
Well, Bates is going to be with him, so you have my deep, deep sympathy.
Well, Scott, we look forward to catching up with you, man. You had some nice things to say about the podcast out there, if I do remember correctly. And yep, I'm going to have the ZIS 2 there, so you can check it out on the table.
All right.
See, I really did finish it.
So he claims.
That'd be something. We like this whole thing's a ruse. We don't actually build models.
Or we don't even show up in Omaha. We hire a couple of actors.
Too many people know what we look like now.
Well, it's the sound of our voice. That one still gets me. Was 2020 or 2021 in Indy getting recognized for the first time by the sound of my voice.
Well, Dave, it's the Benchtop Halftime Report now, brought to us by Tackett Z. Tackett Z, the must-have tools for the model maker. You can check out all Ed's latest and greatest offerings at tacketz.com. So, Ed, I don't know if he's coming to Nationals or not.
I don't know if he is either. That's a great question.
Or many other folks from our club. I don't know.
I do not know.
Well, check it out, tacketz.com. Well, Dave, we finished some stuff. We've had a couple of weeks.
Yep.
What's on your bench?
Well, right now the thing I'm really working on is the Airfix Kate that I ended up starting just because you, me, and the Canadians were all on a group build Zoom chat a couple of weeks ago. And I've been wanting to build this kit. One of my areas of interest are World War II Japanese kits. I've got a Pearl Harbor Zero, and I've wanted a Pearl Harbor Kate. And I've got a bunch of decal sheets, as everybody knows. I've got a bunch of decal sheets. And so I've got numerous markings choices for the Kate for Pearl Harbor. That's what I'm building. And when I was younger, I really enjoyed painting, finishing, and decaling. And the older I've gotten, I've got to say, I'm really now starting to enjoy construction more. Whereas when I was younger, construction was just a way to get to the point where I started painting and decaling, etc. And I've got to say, there's a certain pleasure that I'm getting out of at this stage in life, or this stage in my modeling life, in building. And these Airfix kits are really fantastic. They fit together really well. And I'm enjoying it. The other thing on my bench is the B-52 that I've been building to put in my brother's markings. It is basically ready for decals now. Now, my problem is I've got 8 days to get it done before the Nationals, and depending on what my work life and my family life demand of me, I may or may not make it. We'll see. But the bench is moving. Things are happening. I'm looking forward to the Nationals and maybe picking up a few new things. So
maybe.
Okay. You got me. Yes. I know I'll be picking up a few new things. The question is how much and whether or not they'll accept a kidney in exchange. The juices are flowing. The mojo is happening, and there's nothing better when you're in that zone. And I know from previous experience, I will come back from the Nationals pumped beyond belief. It happens every time. I come back from the Nationals and I hit the bench hard because I've seen some great modeling, and the first 60 seconds I take a look at all of the great modeling and go, okay, I need to quit because I'm not going to ever get to anywhere near what these people can do. But then that thought disappears and I get fired up to build. So I can't wait. So what's your bench look like?
Well, it was clean for a little while.
Yeah, allegedly this too has been finished, but I'm not sure about that. I guess I'm going to have to see at Omaha.
I've got the E16 out of the display case.
I have seen that,
and I've been. It's really close to paint.
Have you come to accept the fact that you will never find the level of information you need on the catapult, so that you're going to just have to bite the bullet and, gizmology the best approximation that you can?
I'm well down that road, but
okay,
that's okay because it's still a good getting better plan.
Sure,
because I haven't built an airplane in ages.
Yeah.
Now I can say that again because it's been a year almost since I touched this thing. I want to rig the catapult as best I can, and I had that all figured out, and then I didn't write anything down. So I had to go relearn all that. And finally I made some notes in the notebook about how to do that. And then it's a matter of what I was going to use. I was hoping to use some kind of elastic thread, but I can't find anything that's big enough in diameter that's actually round. So I found on eBay a couple of days ago from one of the model railroad suppliers. It's a 9-strand cable that is 0.006 of an inch in diameter.
That's fair size in 70-second scale.
Yeah, so I think I've found it. That ought to show up in a few days, and we'll know. Now that's got its own issue. With the elastic, I can you can stretch it and tack it at the end, and it'll hold its tautness. Right. This might be challenging.
What is this made of?
It's probably copper or something.
Oh, it's actually braided.
Yeah, it's metal
cable.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So it may or may not work. It'll look good, but it's going to take some glue to get it to hold to the pulleys tightly and look right.
Well, but the nice thing about copper is, opposed to a lot of other metals, copper really is pliable, is soft, and tends to hold whatever shape you bend it to.
So yeah, it may not. I don't know. It may not be copper.
Well, we'll see.
I'll let you know.
Okay. We've got about 20 hours to talk about that on the way to Omaha and then the way back.
So I'm hoping that I can add the last little bits to the actual plane, and I've started prepping the parts for the catapult for paint. So they're getting stuck to popsicle sticks, and I'm trying to think through my sequence of how I'm going to do that.
Sure.
Because it's in 3 pieces. It's the launch mechanism. I left one of the sides off the catapult.
Right, because you need to rig it.
Because I got to rig it and put the launch engine in it, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then put the final side on it when it's done. So I think I got a good plan. We'll see. We'll see if it's executable or not.
Well, you know what they say, PPPPP. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. So, sitting and taking some time to think, that's, when Skippy comes over to build, one of the things that I always find amazing with him is how much time he sits there and stares at the instructions and stares at the parts and tests fits and fiddles and then thinks some more and test fits. And one of the results of that, other than the fact that he builds a model once every year or maybe even once every two, is the fact that he's thought about it so much that when it actually comes to putting parts together, he never or almost never makes a mistake, and things fit to the point where he never needs filler, because even with a Valone kit, because he has done so much thinking and planning. Speaking of thinking and planning, have you been thinking and planning about a model lately?
Yeah, I've really working through that KV85 project. I'm not going to say a lot about that other because it's all virtual modeling, really. I've got to get a plan to get all the weld seams off the rear deck of the thing that aren't supposed to be there. So I think the easiest path forward with that is to I'm hoping to pick up a separate second upper hull piece. That would really make things simple, but we'll see if I can find one without having to buy a whole new kit, because I don't want to. That kit's expensive.
Well, you may find one at a blowout at.
I might, or even
because it's not the most popular model in the world. Let's face it.
No, that's for sure.
Have you ever seen the KV85 built up at a contest, even a straight out of the box one?
I don't think I have. No.
Neither have I, which I think is interesting, given the fact that there are at least two kits of the thing.
Well, more on that after the Nationals, probably.
Well, just think again, you've got 20 hours of car ride to be thinking about, okay, how am I going to do this? So you bring a notebook, you make notes, and by the time we get back to Louisville, you'll have it all planned out.
Well, Dave, let's finish up this listener mail.
You got it.
Kicking off this final segment of our listener mail is Robbie Naufs, and he's got a few things to say about group builds. He's always been someone who's excited about joining a group build, only to quickly run out of steam if he's not, has doesn't have a vested interest.
That's exactly my experience. I'm always excited every time I get into one, and halfway through it, I'm like, why in God's name did I do this?
One thing to make that a little easier on him, because he's still doing the group builds, is his friend at Smithy's Model Hangar and himself helped organize a rotating group build. Well, a rotating group build group. It's the AMG on Facebook, and he's provided a link to that. And they do 2 months on, 2 months off. And then the group nominates and votes on what the next theme's going to be. And that's kind of yet another take on a group build.
Yeah.
Though I'd still think the risk is there to have something get elected that's not to your fancy.
Well, not only that, but also for me, one of the big challenges I find is a lot of group builds. They want to build it faster than I generally am able to produce a model, and that just I don't model well under pressure. So if I'm in a group build, it's like the Moosaroo that's coming. I mean, at least the fact that I should have almost a year, or at least 9 months or so, to get this thing done, whatever it might turn out to be.
Well, and he also comments on the feelings he gets after he finishes a build. He's got a couple things that happen for him. First off, he's glad that something's done and off the bench.
Absolutely. That is one of the best feelings there is.
And sometimes he has a slight feeling of loss that the build is over, especially if it was an enjoyable one.
I was going to say that actually is true. I know that particularly when you really nail it, I mean, when you feel like you did everything you wanted to, you accomplished what you were trying to accomplish, and not only that, but you learned a thing or two, there can be that sense of loss that, okay, or at least I'm not so sure, it might not be a fear that you're not going to do as well with the next one, or that you're not going to learn as much with the next one. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that experience.
And if it's not one or both of those, he always has anxiety of picking the next build and can spend a few evenings just picking something because he doesn't want to risk it
being
boring or not being fully engaged. So I don't have that problem. I usually got 6 or 7 lined up that I want in my head. I would like to build. Back to our lists, right?
But you even you with that situation where you have 5 or 6 builds that you're thinking about doing, you're always juggling those in your mind. I mean, KV-85, Katusha, Reba Botan, whatever, you're constantly moving them back and forth, the priority list,
right?
As far as
that's fair.
What's next? So I can relate to that. That, you know, before you actually cut plastic, you're like, okay, do I really want to do this one next, or is there something else I'd rather do more?
And finally, yes, how much Jim Bates is paying us to say nice things about him. Man, it's a lot. I mean, I'm worried. It's getting hard to launder the money buying model kits.
Well, you know, those rich Washington lawyers, they have so much money. It just, you know, it's like an NFL player in a strip club making it rain. And, you know, in fact, that's one of the reasons we're looking forward to seeing the Jim in Omaha, is we imagine at some point he's going to be in the Mojo dojo just making it rain. And we're just going to be scooping up the bills and then going down to the vendor room.
That's the way it works, man.
If only that were true.
George Welch from Loudon, New Hampshire found my comments about my own model interesting. I guess when I was sizing up the Zis build, that's probably what he's talking about. You know, and he's right. Sometimes we're our own worst critic.
Yes, we almost always are.
And he asked, you know, he's wondering if my bit about the dissatisfaction with the base of my scene is just simple math. And
simple math how?
He's wondering how many bases and scenes have I done.
Fair comment.
The point is I probably built more models than bases.
I would agree. And as much as you're critical of the Zis base, and I don't disagree with you about any of your criticisms of it, having seen your previous bases, I absolutely think your Zis base is the best base you've done so far.
Well, I agree with that too. Well, it's kind of apples and oranges though, because all the other were just something to stick the model on.
Right. Where this one was a little more detailed.
That's true. Well, he quotes a phrase from the best exotic marigold hotel: "The more we do, the luckier we get."
Absolutely true. You know, that's what. Think about what Napoleon said when asked about what he wanted in a general. The number one thing he wanted was lucky.
I had a manager once that said, "Luck is the byproduct of skill."
Yes, and that is true too. Things that look like luck are actually skill and experience and effort, which may also have been what Napoleon was getting at.
You're probably right on that one. I'll keep going.
George and I have DM'd back and forth a few times, and I've really enjoyed our interaction. So hopefully going to keep building, and I'm looking forward to seeing some completed models.
Scott McPhee again from Northern Saskatchewan. That's who the other listener mail was referencing about starting the club at his school.
Mm-hmm.
He says if we find ourselves in Northern Saskatchewan, we're probably lost.
I was going to say that exact same thing.
He's curious. Do we listen to any genres of music or programming when building? Oh yeah.
This is Mike's wheelhouse. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, you know, I listened to the other modeling podcasts for one. We'll get that out of the way real quick. I try to stay caught up as best I can, but I listen to a lot of 80s new wave. I listen to a lot of late 70s, early 80s new wave, and I listen to a lot of instrumental jazz too, like piano and jazz like that. Coffee Table Jazz is on Spotify. That's one I listen to a lot. The headbangers I don't get. I don't see how I couldn't do it. That's just too loud and too driving. That's not a statement on the music. That's just a statement on my inability to focus when listening to something like that. Now, what I was going to add to that was I'm still a runner for fitness, but I used to be a very avid runner. And one thing I could never do was run with headphones and listen to music while I ran.
Really?
Absolutely
That was the I've completed one mini marathon in my life. I was a runner for a very brief period, and the only way I could run was listening to music.
Can't do it. So that's what I listen to. Sometimes some big band from the 40s too.
I was going to say, I listen to podcasts, number one. Number two, I listen to YouTube. There are, again, I referenced Drakina earlier in this episode. I love to put his episodes on while I'm working on a model, because you can listen to them as well as look at them. You don't have to be looking at them. As far as modeling goes, there's only two genres of music three genres of music that I can listen to and model successfully. First and foremost is big band. I find it soothing, and therefore I can listen to it. Number two is rhythm and blues. I like listening to it, and it's not too frenetic, even the more upbeat R&B tunes. And then the number three is classical. I don't listen to classical as much, but they're in the Hall of the Mountain King or 1812 Overture, or, I can listen to classical music and still model successfully. I can't listen to hard rock. It's just too distracting to me.
I wonder what he listens to.
Yeah. Tell us what you listen to.
Well, moving on, Dave, it was funny you mentioned those Hasegawa Museum series.
Yeah.
Aircraft kits, because George Riddell from another one from Polish Coast Watchers there in Peoria has written in. He's building the Sopwith Camel.
Oh.
So skin off with all the wood exposed.
And those things done are gorgeous kits.
Well, he liked my ammo boxes because he's thinking the wood under the skin might look newish like that. It might. I don't know what it would look like.
I would think that it obviously being covered with doped linen, it wouldn't really weather. So if you're doing a skin off model, I think doing fresh wood certainly makes sense.
But they might have shellacked it.
That's true. They might have. I don't know.
Assuming they did not, and I've answered him by email already, but for the listeners at large, the new wood in my Zis 2 base supporting stuff, the ammo boxes primarily, I started out with Tamiya Buff. I think it's XF 57 maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a really light, desaturated tan color.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my wet palette, I shifted several different Vallejo paints. I picked something that was close to the buff, shifted some to the brown, some to the gray, some to the yellow to get the various woodish new wood tones, and then a real thin wash of brown when I was all done. So that's how I did the ammo boxes, more or less.
And you know what? I had not thought about it until you started doing those. But I am convinced that doing new wood, fresh wood, is actually harder than doing weathered wood.
It may be.
I think it's harder to pull off and get the look of fresh lumber than it is to take a piece of wood that's been out and exposed, because there's so much more variation in weathered wood that you can get away with doing so much more, whereas fresh lumber has a particular look to it. So I'm not convinced that what you did was actually not harder than doing a weathered fence line or something like that.
Eddie Turner, somewhere in the south of England. He liked our joke about the Atlantic seabed mud.
Our friend Evan McCallum did a really great play on that when he heard that Panzermeister 36, which I got to admit I laughed out loud when I saw what he did.
He's got what he's calling the lightsaber technique for removing fragile parts from the sprue.
Which is?
This is take the scalpel or knife blade and heat it up with a flame, and then cut the part off the sprue.
That actually is a great idea because of the fact that you're melting through the plastic rather than forcing your way through the plastic with pressure. Now, obviously, you have to cut far enough up that you make sure you don't the heat doesn't distort the part. But that is actually a really, really good idea, which, frankly, I'd never really thought of. Of course, I've got those God hands nippers, and so I don't have any problem with removing extremely fragile parts. But that's a great alternative.
Yeah, I think that's right. You need to cut it off a little further, but once you just have like a small section of sprue left on it with the sprue connection.
Yep, that's easy.
Well, what happens when you cut those long, skinny parts at one location, it puts tension in the part because it's still attached somewhere else, right?
Right.
Well, if you did it this way and cut it all out, then those points aren't causing you issue anymore when you go to cut them off. So, no, that's a really good idea.
That is a great idea. There's no tension at that point.
Michael Karnaka from New York City.
Uh-oh.
He's got another question.
I knew he would. We're coming to rely on him, man. This guy's going to make the payroll at some point, if we ever get a payroll.
He's going to be disappointed. He was wondering if we recall any great modeling controversies of the past. He seems to recall that IPMS had a serious debate some time ago regarding car crash dioramas.
I don't remember the car crash one. I do remember the one where the Phoenix Follies figures generated what was called Rule 4 about having to put certain adult-themed figures behind a partitioned area because of the fact that obscenity is a local standard for the law. IPMS USA had to take that into consideration, and some people just didn't understand why. So I remember that particular controversy. I don't remember the car crash one, but it may well have been.
Gosh, I don't know. That's maybe one I don't have a good answer for. We've already talked about two recent ones. One was the Border Models release of the 32nd scale.
Yeah.
Lancaster had some controversy around it.
Yep.
And also the marketing around AK's book.
Yep. I remember. And that one
went off the rails, man.
Oh, went off the rails right away. And I think as much as anything, it's amazing how much culturally things present differently to different cultures, different countries. Something that's utterly acceptable and seen as non-controversial in one country would be horribly controversial in another. And I think that what they did just didn't translate from the culture they were working in to, at least in our case, English. But I'm sure there are others out there. If you all listening remember other modeling controversies, well, I can tell you a modeling controversy, but God, I'm so old that nobody else remembers this. I remember when it was controversial to weather an aircraft model back in the 80s. Honest to gosh, it was wildly controversial in the early to mid 1980s for a modeler to weather an aircraft model. And some people were wholly convinced that if an aircraft modeler was weathering an aircraft model, it was because he was trying to hide something. And that obviously has changed in the last 45 years or so. But at the time, it was a big controversy.
All right. We're getting close to the end here of the listener mail. God, we got so much this time.
It's amazing.
Paul Wheeler. Now, he's attending his second Nats thanks to your persuasion.
Good.
He was admiring John Miller's Arma P51.
Oh, absolutely amazing work. John is a wizard.
Then he remembered he had a P51 in the stash, cracked that out, and then he was admiring Martin Kovac's JS2.
Oh.
And then he realized he had a 48 scale Tamiya JS2 in his stash and a box of Russians to go with it. So it's going to be his first attempt at building a vignette with the JS2 and the infantry. Just stretch his figure painting chops, and he's using all this to get better.
Well, and Martin has a real interesting technique for painting figures that, frankly, I would like to try. And so I highly urge you to take inspiration from what he's doing and see if you can translate some of that into your own modeling. Now, Mike and I have been watching these videos as Martin drops them every week. And this particular subject is of great interest to Mike. So I've been texting him every Friday when they drop and teasing him about his level of interest in these things. And they have been fantastic so far.
And he says he's also been following Spencer Pollard's lead and finding some satisfaction again on some of these older kits and embracing the raised panel lines.
I admire Spencer for doing that. Ain't no way I'm going to do it. I am still firmly in the camp of life's too short to build older kits.
I'm kind of the opposite on this one because, I keep thinking about these nostalgia builds. And when I saw that voodoo he's working on and what he did with the raised panel lines, for those who haven't been following, basically what he did, he painted the model, got it all seamed out, painted it. And then he went back with a very fine grit sanding sponge, I guess, something like that. I don't know exactly what he did, but he went back and he knocked the paint off all the raised detail. He probably took it down just about flush with the paint.
Yeah.
So what you ended up with is you don't have a raised panel line anymore, but you've got bare plastic showing where there used to be paint. And the illusion's pretty good, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering, I built that monogram 48 scale 0 probably 6 times over my childhood. And those things are either in dark green or black plastic. And I was wondering, is there an A6M5, which is, I think, what that kit is?
Yeah.
Is there a gray one?
No, by that time in the war, they were all generally green over gray.
Yeah. Boy, man, that'd be sharp.
I'd have to look. Lord knows I got enough decal sheets of A6Ms that who knows, I'm probably come up with I know I can think of an A6M5 with outer wing panels that were light gray, but as far as overall, I don't know. I'll have to look.
Well, it was a tempting rabbit hole for a nostalgia build. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but certainly we were talking about that earlier today, in fact.
Yeah.
Bill Webb, who you met at Wonderfest from London, Ontario.
Yep.
Now he's sending you a thank you, other than your disparaging remarks about the CF100.
Well, I had to gig him about the CF100. I mean, you do that to a Canadian just to see how thick their skin is.
Well, I think they call it the clunk too.
The clunk, yeah.
Bill likes to push himself by taking himself out of his comfort zone, which is
always a good idea.
Always a good idea.
Always.
So if it turns into a disaster, you still learn something and you can just start another piece of plastic. He says.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that is 100% true. Taking yourself out of your comfort zone and doing something that you might not normally otherwise do, as long as you're interested and motivated in it, even if it turns into a complete disaster, you throw it in the trash and you still learn something. It might be you learned by negative information, but you still learned something.
And finally, we're at the end. Mr. Bob Bear from Charlotte, North Carolina, who's going to be at the Nationals.
All right. Stop by the table.
He's got a build for the Plastic Posse podcast, M3, M4 build. He built a Sexton and ammo trailer.
Oh, good. I can't wait to see how many of those things show up at Omaha.
And, it's his hang-up's always been the fear of messing up.
Yep. And listen, I can sympathize with that completely and utterly.
That'll stop a lot of us. But this one, he's put a lot of new stuff in. First time he's been using oils. First time including a figure. But he says it's a cat, though. He's going to count that.
I would count it, too.
First vignette. And it's only the second tank he's ever built. So good on you. He stretched it out and is going to have something for their group build. That's good.
Listen, I am all you did something out of your comfort zone. You did new stuff. And even if it hadn't been 100% successful, you did new things and you learned something. And that is a whole lot better than taking the same kit, building it the same safe way, and doing nothing new on it.
Yep.
If those are your two choices, choose out of your comfort zone every single time.
Well, Bob, good on you. And then I'm going to tell you to come by the table and remind me that I have something I want to talk to you about.
Good.
Well, Dave, that's it for the listener mail, unless you've got some more from Facebook.
Nope, that's it. And I assume at this point you have consumed your modeling fluid?
I have. My modeling fluid is all gone.
And what did you think?
I haven't had that style of beer in a long time, and I enjoyed the first 5 last night. And this one's now gone. So
I have to admit that I'm not sure that I could put 5 of even those away in one sitting.
Well, it was 1 an hour for 5 hours.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I've got to say this Voodoo Ranger Juice Force IPA, really good, very drinkable. In fact, if you put a gun to my head, I'm not sure whether I would prefer the Imperial IPA or the Juice Force IPA. But both very, very good beers, and certainly great for a modeling session or recording session. Mike, we're at the end here. You have any shout outs?
I do. I want to shout all the PayPal and Patreon contributors to our show. I mean, we really appreciate it. Had a few more of those come in. A couple of the recurring ones on PayPal recently, and some of those folks have absolved me from mentioning their name continually. So I'll take that as a quit announcing our names.
But we still thank you.
We still thank you very much. If you'd like to contribute to our effort here, you can do so one of two ways. If you want to make a one-time contribution or manage your own recurring contribution, you can do that by going to www.plasticmodelmojo.com, and in the upper right-hand corner of the home page is a heart icon. That'll take you to a PayPal link to let you do that. If you want to let somebody else manage your recurring contribution, you can contribute as much or as little as $1 up on Patreon, www.patreon.com/plasticmodelmojo. We appreciate everything you guys have done for us in the past. We look forward to seeing everybody in Omaha, and just thank you. Thank you so much for everything you've all done for us.
Well, I've got 2 shout outs. My number one is to Scott Hackney and all of the guys at Omaha, because you're going to work your butts off coming up. And let me tell you, those of us who are coming in and getting all the enjoyment of it appreciate the fact that for 4 days out of your life, you're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort when you could be doing other things, putting on a show that we're going to enjoy. So I do want you to know that your efforts are appreciated, and hopefully you realize that, and hopefully you still get plenty of time to enjoy the show even while you work the show. Everybody who's listening to this podcast while you're driving or flying to Omaha, this is a shout out to you. Thank you for listening. When you get to Omaha, come into the vendor room, find us, come by, stop, say hi, sign our guest book. Honest to gosh, we really enjoy the interactions with all of you. And we like nothing better than putting a face with a name. It was the single most enjoyable part of the Las Vegas convention for me, was getting to sit there and just shoot the breeze with listeners and folks who'd emailed us or DM'd us, and then reminded us of what their DM or email was. Because again, that's what we're getting out of this more than anything else. So if you're listening while you're driving or flying to Omaha, please come by. Please stop by the table. Please make yourself known. And I can't wait to see you all in person.
All right, Dave. We're not only at the end of the mailbag, we're at the end of the episode.
So you know what they say, Mike.
So many kits, Dave.
So little time in Omaha.
That's right. We'll be there soon.
Yep.
See everybody there.
Absolutely.